Hi guys, this video is going to be centered around helping parents to help their children with their anxiety. It's just the basics. I'll make a video in the future addressing specific anxieties and coping skills targeted towards those. This is just a general umbrella for how to help your children through anxiety and the experience of unsettling and distressing emotions related to fear and worry. The first thing to know is that it's really natural for parents to go into protection mode when they sense or their children explicitly tell them that they're anxious, afraid, or worried. But parents would be really well suited to take a beat, take a breath, take a break before they jump to solving their child's problems for them, and instead focus all that amazing mama and papa bear energy on helping their child to weather and survive the anxiety. When we help our children to survive anxiety, we teach them in a learned experience, an embodied experience, that they can in fact survive it. And every time we do it, we build on that experience and we strengthen that child's resiliency against anxiety. This is often really difficult for a lot of parents because they haven't learned how to manage or be present for their own distressing emotions around anxiety. So a lot of parents, it would be helpful to stop and take a moment and think to yourself, am I experiencing my child's distress right now, my own distress, or a combination of the two that's making it really hard for me to get through this? But the first step when your child is anxious is to always start by connecting to your child. The shortcut to connection is through eye contact and physical touch. You can say explicitly to your child, give me your eyes right now, look at my face, make eye contact. Once you have your child's eyes and you're making eye contact with them, give it a moment, give it a second, let them really lean into that eye contact and that attachment that you've built through years. Next, move on to that physical touch. Put your hand on their shoulder, put your arm around them, offer them a hug. It can be really healing for children to get a hug when they're feeling really overwhelmed by their emotions, and it can help them to be able to have the space to process. The next step is to keep in mind that we want to avoid avoidance. When we avoid anxiety, we create more anxiety. There's tons and tons of literature. There's been many studies done. This is a known fact at this point. When we avoid the thing we're anxious about, we build the anxiety even stronger and bigger. So we want to move into the anxiety. We want to let our child worry, but we want to do it in a guided and a supported way. So our first step is to honor the feeling is real. Yes, you are anxious about this, you are afraid about this, you are worried about this thing. That is real. The second step is to break down the anxiety. What is the anxiety telling you? Say the fear is of dogs. So the anxiety is telling you that dogs can be dangerous and that a dog could hurt you. Okay. That's true, right? So we want to honor that that's true. But then the next step is to move even further into the anxiety and ask the child and ourselves, is it a perceived or imaginary threat that's actually likely to happen? Dogs do bite, it happens. But the actual occurrence of it, of the dogs we come across in our daily life, is it likely that we are to be bitten by a dog? You may have a specific outlier dog in your life that's known to be a little bit dangerous or not as trustworthy, and you could point out that anxiety the child has is super helpful around that one dog. But every other dog you know, has it ever bitten anybody? Can you trust it? Can you sit next to it? Can you pet it? What dogs do we come in contact with? Are the majority of the dogs we see on the street leashed and with their owner? Okay, well then is it likely that that dog is going to get away from their owner, run to us, and bite us? No, it's not. The next step would be to talk to your child about what precautions you're taking to ensure that it doesn't. So in the example I just used of the dangerous dog, if you actually know a dangerous dog, you might take some precautions like not going over to that home, avoiding that dog. That makes perfect sense. That's not avoiding anxiety, that's avoiding getting bit by a dog. Whereas when we're walking down the street, we might make a simple step to let our child walk on the outside so that it doesn't come in contact with the dog that's walking down the street, and therefore provide protection against a dog we don't know. But do we need to cross the street every time we see a dog? No, that's going overboard. That's avoiding the anxiety. The next step is to encourage your child to find their power in their anxiety. So, in the fear of dogs, your child could start to share that with people who have dogs. They could say, quite frankly, to the person, I'm afraid of dogs. Would you hold your dog back? Can you make your dog sit before I pet it? Let your child know the things they can do to help their own anxiety and make the experience of whatever it is they have anxiety about less threatening to them. So then the next step would be to plan and accommodate for the child you have, not possibly the child you were or the child you wished you had. You want to first always create a safe environment for your child. This is basic, but so often it doesn't happen. Through the creation of a life that has a lot of routines and structure in it, it has reliable discipline and redirection. It has an avoidance of severe traumas or grossly inappropriate things for children. That's like allowing your young child to view a horror film. Okay, well, if your child has nightmares after viewing horror films, you have a pretty good idea why. Or not allowing your young child to play Grand Theft Auto, where, you know, there's really violent and inappropriate things happening in it. That can create fears for children that are unlikely to happen in their real life, but feel real because they feel like they experienced it through the video game or the movie. The next step would be to lay out a loose schedule for the event or the day your child is anxious about. So that would be saying, like, if you're going to a birthday party and your child's really anxious about birthday parties, we're going to wake up, we're going to take a shower, we're going to have breakfast, we're going to get dressed, we're going to go out to the car. First, we're going to stop at Marshall's to pick up a gift. Then we're going to drive to the birthday party, and then we are going to go into the birthday party. And that this is where we lean into setting expectations, what we're actually going to do at the birthday party. Are we only going to stay 2 hours instead of the 4 hours to allow our child to experience the party, but not put too much stress or pressure on them to make it through a really long party? Are we going to have a code word for when we need a break? Step outside, go to the bathroom together, whatever we need to do to reset. So that's setting the expectations. The next thing would be to role play the tricky or anxiety provoking moments with your child. So if your child gets really anxious talking to more than one child at once, so you would role play, if you can get another person super helpful, how to manage more than one conversation at the same time. So you would practice having these little fake conversations. If your child gets really anxious talking to adults, you would role play and provide some scripted answers to common questions. A lot of times adults ask kids, where do you go to school? So where do you go to school? Have your child practice saying where they go to school. Do you do any sports? What extracurriculars do you participate in? Have your child practice saying those things. It can be really hard for children with particularly social anxiety to get these things out without practicing them beforehand, and creating a little script for them. For older children, for teens, it's so often, what do you want to be when you grow up? Where are you going to college? I tell teens all the time, it is perfectly acceptable to come up with some throwaway answers that they can just sort of say to get through that awkward moment in the conversation. Lastly, you want to say no to events or things that you know your child is not ready for. We don't want to avoid discomfort so much so that we never get past anxiety. But if you know that it's going to be an extremely unstructured birthday party, say at like a giant Sky Zone or Fun House, and your child is just trying to get through the 10-person birthday party in a private home, you might want to say no to Sky Zone and focus your energy on really nailing those smaller in-home birthday parties before you move up to Sky Zone or fun houses and whatnot. That is not the same as avoiding the anxiety. It is working within what's called your child's zone of proximal development and scaffolding their capabilities. You want to stretch their capabilities, but you want to keep it doable, because ultimately you do want your child to be successful. You don't want to make them feel like a failure or allow them to feel like a failure because they didn't make it through the Sky Zone birthday party, when we knew full well they had a hard time at the small birthday party. So the next step would be to help your child to build and use their coping skills. Coping skills are not developed overnight, and they're not developed in moments of extreme dysregulation, which means this takes time and it takes practice. Practice when your child is not feeling anxious or overwhelmed. You want to have some concrete strategies and coping skills for your children that you can use by name. So if you have specific deep breathing exercises, there's a million of them on YouTube. You could practice them with your child beforehand, and you could say, use the rainbow deep breathing exercise, use the eye and palm deep breathing exercise, something by name that you could say to your child so they can practice it in the moment and they can also utilize it in the moment. You could have pep talks and conversations around adjusting your attitude and looking for the positive so that you can shortcut that to, hey, maybe we should use our adjusting our attitude coping skill right now. Stopping to think, what can I change my thinking about this? You could practice taking sensory breaks. For a lot of children, particularly children with the intersection of ADHD and anxiety, sensory breaks are really essential for helping them to overcome anxiety. You can teach them grounding techniques. A very easy and popular one to do is to just drink some water or to eat some food and get back in your body. And I would also highly encourage parents to model and explicitly share their own use of coping skills. With my own children, I do it all the time. I'm like, I need to take a breath. I need to take a break. Let me walk away for a moment. So that my kids know that I need coping skills and I use them, and I am able to maintain and control my own behaviors through the use of coping skills. You want to also emphasize often with your child. You want to normalize their fears, but you don't want to, and when you're normalizing them, you don't want to both dismiss them or encourage them. So you're going to walk a fine line. Like if your child's afraid of dogs, there's a lot of people who are afraid of dogs. But then you also want to teach your child resiliency. So maybe you share how you used to be afraid of dogs or a particular dog that caused you a lot of anxiety and the techniques and steps you took to get through it. You want to, when you're empathizing with your child, reteach and reteach children to name their emotions. What is the exact feeling they're feeling around the anxiety? And by extension, when you teach children to name their emotions, you teach them to self-advocate about those emotions and those feelings, because then they can go talk to others and share with some self-knowledge what it is they're going through and what they're experiencing for the moments when you're not there to help them through it. That's so helpful. I can tell when kids have practiced that, especially in the school setting, because they'll blurt out, I need a minute, I'm overwhelmed, I'm so angry right now, I need a minute, instead of just kicking walls or punching things. They're able to say, give me space, that some of the children will actually say, I need space, give me space. So we'll make a little circle of invisible space around them and let them have their second or their moment to process. They're not able to do that for themselves, though, if they haven't practiced naming the emotion of what they're feeling. The last tip and technique I have is for parents to take care of themselves. It can be really draining being the parent of a child struggling with anxiety. Children with anxiety often take a lot of their more uncomfortable emotions out on their parents and their teachers, if I'm being honest. They take their uncomfortable emotions that they feel very vulnerable about out on the people that they trust and love and know the most, and the people they know they aren't going to abandon them or desert them for feeling them. So that ends up being a lot for parents and teachers. So I want to encourage parents to take the moment to vent, call their friends that are parents, join an online support group. There's a million of them. Meetup, Facebook, Instagram. See a therapist of their own and vent about the experience, as well as really lean into any mentors they have in parenting. I know I have a few mentors myself. I have leaned into them countless times in my parenting and asked them, what did you do? What would you have done differently? Do you have any advice for this moment? It can be really, really helpful to have the mentors. They can both normalize the experience for you, as well as give you some really amazing pearls of wisdom. Another thing I have to say is don't be afraid to tell your kids when it's overwhelming for you. If you use child-appropriate language and you express to them, I'm having a hard time with your anxiety right now and I need a break, you're not going to kill them. You're not going to destroy them. What you're going to do is model a coping skill and model that we all get overwhelmed and that actually every family member needs to help pitch in, take care of the whole family. This is not the same as parentifying a child and making them responsible for your feelings or your emotions at all. It's modeling the need for a break when we're overwhelmed and we're not about to make our best decisions or let the best things come out of our mouth. So I hope I've helped you guys out. I hope I've given you some good techniques and skills for coping with children's anxiety. I appreciate if you watch this whole video. We're at like 16 minutes now. And I can't wait to make some more videos for you. Thanks.